to film a review of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm going to start off by kind of reviewing it and telling you more about my emotions and impressions rather than analytical thoughts. And then I'll move into like a more spoiler-ass section where I'll just discuss the book and whatever I feel like I need to get out. To begin with, I feel kind of silly even reviewing Crime and Punishment because like what am I gonna say? Like this is a terrible book, don't check it out, not worth the hype. I don't know if I have the position of authority to be able to do that kind of thing, but I don't need to because I really enjoyed it. This book is about a crime and a subsequent punishment. So the crime of Raskolnikov, a young student living in St. Petersburg against a old woman. So essentially he murders an old woman, and then the rest of the book is the way in which he reacts to that murder, the way in which other people react to it, redemption, etc. Like basically it's an exploration of what humans can do, what they can drive themselves to do. It's a philosophical exploration of humanity, it's a psychological exploration of humanity. It's not plot focused because it's just people reacting to things, and that's probably why I really liked it, because I like people narratives. It's what I like my classics for. I like my classics to be like long, slow, and kind of arduous, and to really philosophize about the fate and the meaning of humanity, because otherwise I'm like, what's the point? That's kind of the fundamental question there, isn't it? What's the point? Raskolnikov didn't really get the point at first, did he? Anyway, I've heard a lot of people say that this is a really difficult book to read, or it's really hard to get into, really hard to understand. I really didn't find it to be. I had a good translation, so the Fyodor Volkonsky translation that the vintage classics are made in is really good. It's fine, it's readable. The prose I don't think is difficult to digest because it is so well translated. But there is a lot of dialogue, and that seems kind of odd to say because normally dialogue is like the easy part of the book that you're excited for, but no, in this case you have like 2 to 3 pages of dialogue at times, and it's just like one paragraph, and it's just one character talking, and that's probably why it was hard for me to get into it at first. By like the 40th, 50th pages, there were like paragraphs and pages of these people talking. I didn't know who they were and I didn't care who they were. It was really hard for me to get into. But then around like the 70-page mark, and this is like a 520-page book, so it's fine, it was pretty early on, I really got into it because I started actually caring about the characters. And I think that's what's required of you to find this book interesting and entertaining, is you need to care about these characters, and then from there, you'll care about their thoughts and you'll care about their actions and you'll care about what happens, despite the fact that the plot is kind of loose. Like, it's not really like sit on the edge of your seat, God who knows what's happening plot. It's more so like sitting on the edge of your seat, how will this character react to this character plot. The book is a profound look at humanity, and is a profoundly sympathetic view of people, and I don't think it's difficult to understand. I think that if you come into it with the understanding that there's a lot to think about and digest, it's probably going to take you a long time to read because, again, it's not difficult, but you really want to process a lot of the things that are happening, which is why it took me like a week to read. Of like every day I was reading this book, but I had to stop because I was like, I need to digest everything that just happened. I would absolutely recommend reading it. It is a genuinely good novel. So in case you were wondering, yes, the classics do sometimes live up to the hype. It is a good novel. It is a brilliant exploration of people. It is a phenomenal read, and yeah, so definitely check it out if you were afraid of it or if you were considering, whatever, just do it. Okay, so then that was my review portion. I just wanted to talk about some of my thoughts, and the thing is, as I was thinking about doing this video, because I haven't really done like reviews and discussions before formatted like this, and I thought, okay, if I want to talk about the themes of the book, then I need to like look at it from an academic sense. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to look up the different themes of the book, and I need to discuss what academia's thought of them. And then I was like, no, what's the point? Because if you wanted to know, then you could go on Spark Notes and you could look up yourself. So a very common theory is that this is Dostoevsky's response to this Russian radical movement of the time. And essentially he was writing about, Russia, the society of Russia, and what people were like, and how, in embracing this hyper-intellectual atheist viewpoint, we're unable to exist in harmony with ourselves. Essentially, it's about how lost society has become, and I think it's an interesting interpretation, and I wouldn't say that my own differs that much from it, but for me, this was really about people, and how lost people can become, and how difficult but also easy it is to bring them back. This is like a very personal reading of the book, because I tend to have a supremely optimistic view of human nature. Maybe that's just because I'm young and I haven't experienced like the worst of it yet, but I want my fiction to have what I consider to be a realistic view of humanity, which I think is optimistic. Because of that, this theme of redemption in the novel meant a lot to me, because it's interesting how in the beginning of the book I was convinced that Raskolnikov was beyond saving. Because, the man was frothing at the mouth every 2 pages. The man was, like, on the floor. He was raving. What I assumed would happen was that this would be a novel that turned itself against him. That he was to be an unlikable protagonist, and so we were meant to ostracize of him because of it. That was interesting to me. When the novel started to shift and become more sympathetic towards him near the middle of the novel, that made me respect it more, and that made me like it a lot more when I came to that point, because at that point I was like, okay, no, we're not just condemning this man, we're also sympathizing with him. And I thought that was so beautiful, the redemption that he was capable of achieving, because he truly was like in the pit. There was nowhere lower to go. Like, he couldn't even dig a hole. He was just on flat rock, bottom of the ground, like nowhere left for him to go. And still, he climbed back up. And of course, there's that whole element of religion in it, which didn't bother me because I'm not particularly religious, but you know, if 10 is religious and 1 is atheist, then I'm like a 6 or a 7. And I look very sympathetically upon, in particular, like Christianity. So I wasn't annoyed by that. And I can see how if you were an atheist reading this, you might be annoyed at how, you know, Christianity was seen as the only salvation to human suffering or to human depravity. I think that you don't need to be Christian to appreciate it, because, you know, in a sense, Sonia was his redemption, right? And Sonia and his family. And that was interesting as well, the complicated relationship he had with his family, because it wasn't, and with Sonia as well, because it wasn't just pure, like, okay, great, I love you, you love me, let's rise to heaven together. It was more like, it was these waves and these crests and these troughs where there's moments when he would look at them with hatred. And I think in part because he understood what they had at that moment, that purity, that innocence was something that he thought he had lost. And so he hated them because of it. Christianity brought him out, but not just that. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, it was love, and it was connection to other people that he hadn't allowed himself to feel, because, you know, in his convoluting himself into killing the old woman and her sister in the first place. By the way, they always forget about the sister. They're always like, you killed the old woman. And I'm like, the sister. You also killed the sister. Anyway, it's interesting because I think that in that train of thought that he had created for himself, in which, you know, he was of the better breed of human and he had to kill the woman to overcome the obstacle within himself, to become a blah, 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 blah. But I think that in doing that and in creating that kind of philosophy, he had created a kind of vision where this was for the greater good, because he could help people by taking her money, etc. But I don't think he ever really factored in other people as anything more than abstract. And we see this as well when he's in his, like, the lowest of the low depravity, where he doesn't talk to people and he hates people. He fundamentally cuts himself off from people. I think that in a lot of ways, the moment in which he is capable of being saved is the moment in which he realizes that other people are worthy of him. They are worthy of being listened to and respected, but also he is worthy of other people. He is worthy of being loved by them and cared by them. I think that if you think so little of yourself, as he had in that time period, and then you see these people, your mother, your sister, Sonia, whatever she was to him in the beginning, or Razumikin, I actually don't know how to pronounce his name, Razumikin. How do you say it in English? If you see these people and they're all clustered around you and they're trying to help you, and you, at this point, consider yourself the most depraved of creatures, then you hate them, because you think, how could you possibly invest this time, this energy, and love in me when I am not worthy of it, when I am the filth? So it's interesting, this twofold thing, where I think that to redeem himself, he had to, understand the horrible nature of what he had done, but also understand that he was more than the act, and in doing so, he was able to appreciate others who had appreciated him all this time. But that was just my philosophizing on the whole thing. There's so much to take away from this book. Like, if I sat and I thought about it for like 10 hours, I don't think I'd be able to still properly elaborate on everything I would want to elaborate on. But yeah, that theme of human redemption and what it takes for human redemption, I think, is what really stuck with me, and that's what I focused on throughout my reading of the novel, because I didn't expect it to occur, and when it did, it was such a pleasant shock, but also I think that there's no way else he could have written it. Like, if it hadn't had that theme, then it would have just been the story of a man who tangled himself up in a web of self-deceit and then, you know, became a depraved human being. It wouldn't have been a great work of literature in this sense. This I haven't really thought about much, but it was interesting is how women are this moral center in the novel. It's quite obvious, but it's sort of funny because they're all just the, like, virtuous little penguins running around, and then he's, like, all the men are just, like, screwed up in every way, and the women are just these angels, and they're like, no, it's okay. And I guess that's kind of the point of woman, am I right? That's also interesting, it's just side note, is I noticed a few times in conversations with men, women would kind of take a bigger role than I would have expected, in the sense that, I don't know, they might, like, break into a conversation, or they might interrupt a man as a group of men are talking, and that just happened a few times. And then that was weird for me because I've been reading a lot of, like, British classics, and so, from this time period, and so I was like, oh, right, you know, it's this interesting element of, I think women in Russia had this slightly more elevated role in society. They were regarded as more complicated individual entities than I would have expected as someone coming from just reading British classics. But anyway, yeah, that was just me talking about redemption, human redemption, which apparently I'm very passionate about. Who knew? I guess I did know. If you've read Crime and Punishment, please comment down below. Like, tell me what you thought of it, tell me what you took away from it. Tell me if you disagree with everything I've said here, because this is just my half emotional response to the book, and I don't know how legitimately analytical it is, you know, because once you start looking for a kind of theme in a book, it's possible that I start picking up on things that were meant to be picked up on or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I do think that the theme of human redemption is one that is very central to the work, and in my opinion is what gives it its power. I feel like I've just yelled at a camera. I'm a little bit tired now. But yeah, if you're planning on reading it, tell me. You should read it. It's great. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.